Hi, everyone. It's Henry DeVries with Agency Rainmaker TV. Here's how we look at how do you make it rain? And I have a great guest today, someone I've written about through the years. I was very proud to write a book with Scott Lev. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Henry. Excited to be here today.
Well, let's start with the who. Who do you serve? Who are your clients, Scott?
My clients are global law firms. So, lucky me, I talk to lawyers all day and I recruit partners for global law firms. Sometimes I'll get lucky, I'll do a merger, and then also have a team of people that recruit associates for big firms. That's what we do.
Nice. And then as you're doing that, what's the what? What do you do for them exactly?
So, a lot of it is really looking at what a law firm wants to accomplish in terms of growth. We want to grow our intellectual property bench, or we have a gap in corporate transactional, or we really need a fund formation specialist. And so I'll go out and find attorneys, partners that fit that profile, and not just partners, but also partners who are rainmakers. And so people who understand client service that have what's called a portable book, because the firm wants to have people that can bring business over. And it's not necessarily about the top line revenue, it's about the client relationships. That means here's a partner where he or she has developed about a half dozen to a dozen relationships with C-suites, and what they've really built over the years is trust. And that trust starts on day one when they join that new firm. So that's what I do, is really find out what partners are missing in their careers, what their aspirations are, what they want to accomplish, and then present them to options that can help them reach their goals.
God, I always love it that you found this, what I would call a super tight niche. And
Yeah.
I know you didn't come out of the womb serving lawyers. This was a journey. What was the journey you went through to wind up specializing in global law firms?
Yeah, well, how much time do we have? So long story short, got out of the Navy. I mean, I went to the Naval Academy, went to the Navy, and after I did that, I got into sales and then discovered the executive recruiting industry. And at the time, my niche was commercial construction. Started a training company. I had some success in 2002, started a training company after that, and started training recruiters. So I had a sales training company niched within the recruiting and staffing industry. And a lot of my clients were recruiting firms specializing in legal. And I thought, if I ever want to get back into it, that's the niche I'm going to do because it's pretty interesting. And that's what I did. I sold my training business, got back into that. And so that's how I do it every day. It's like I'm playing poker, where I don't look at this as a business, I'm playing a game. And that's what I've taught people in business when I speak at conferences. I'll use game theory as a metaphor.
Hmm.
When you look at business as a game, you make better decisions, you're more effective at your execution, and it takes the sting out of disappointment. So that's how I look at that.
I've always called business the game worth playing. I really think
Absolutely.
that, and when I do workshops for CEOs, we get into conversations about business, they use that terminology. It's about winning. It's
Mhm.
it's not about profit or other things you'd think of.
Yeah,
So, how do you make it rain? Let's talk about how you attract clients.
sure. I think there's three components of that. Number one is you've got to be good so that if you do work for someone, they're not risking their reputation in referring business to you. So that's where it all starts, having a level of competence. You got to be good. I think number two is knowing why you're different, and not just why you're different or how you're different, but what's distinct about you. What can you say about yourself that nobody else can say about themselves? This is something I've even asked law firms because they're trying to get talent. They've got 199 competitors that look the same, talk the same, do the same thing. They're doing the same service. They're not doing anything different. So I'll even ask law firm leaders when I meet with them, what can you say about your firm that nobody else can say about their firm? And you can't use the word culture. Everybody thinks, oh, we've got great culture. Well, everybody's got great culture. That's not distinct anymore. So I think you've got to be good. You've got to be distinct. Then you also have to dangle the shiny lure of content. And that's what I do with my podcast, Henry, that you've been on, and Mark LeBlanc has been on several times, where how do I make it rain? You're good, you get referrals, you can help people reach their goals through what you do, but then also you've got to showcase your expertise in a way that people can benefit from you, even if they don't buy from you. And that's what I do by producing the Rainmaking podcast. I dangle that shiny lure of content that people cling on to, so it keeps them connected with me. So I'm not being spammy. I'm not putting them on an email newsletter, but every week they're connecting with me just by hearing my voice, giving them value. And then eventually over time, it builds a reputation. And then you come full circle. Now you're the one who gets the call from somebody says, hey, I know a guy, I know a guy, let me call this person. This person can help you because I've heard his podcast. So that's pretty much it, Henry, how you make rain.
So during the pandemic, Scott and Mark LeBlanc and I, we interviewed people in law and in other fields on how they were making it rain. That's how we came up with our book, Rainmaker Confidential. So
Yeah,
we've shared a very similar interest in that.
it's great.
So you do a lot of speaking. How do you get your speaking engagements?
Sometimes people will find me on the web. They'll reach out to me. I used to do a lot years ago, and I actually didn't do much speaking between 2016 and 2022. I started doing a little bit the last couple of years. I even have an agent, Tiffany Lengel, who is in Seattle, and she books me. She'll actually reach out to associations that are having conferences, especially Las Vegas, because I have a game theory story. I used to be a card counting blackjack player years ago
Ah,
and mentored by two alumni of the MIT blackjack team. So I talk about how after you're doing that for a year and a half, it wasn't very interesting, but I found that the principles apply to business. And so I'll target meetings in Las Vegas because my theme, the story, the lessons apply to the theme of every meeting in Las Vegas. So it's nice to have somebody that's actively reaching out to groups where I can speak at their conference and make it a memorable experience.
that's so interesting. I was in a sales training course for presidents of companies. We were all presidents. And I asked one of the fellow students how he spent his weekend. And he says, oh, I went to Las Vegas. I said, how'd you do? He said, well, I won $3,000 and I made $3,000. And I said, sorry, not hearing the difference. He said, oh, the $3,000 was dumb luck. It was slot machines. I made 3,000 playing poker. I studied the mathematics of poker for a year and also studied people. And there'll be tables there where a group of us are all schooled and somebody comes along and goes, poker, this looks interesting. I've always wanted to play. Can I play with you? And about an hour later, we have all their money and we wait for the next person to come along. And it
That's
was
exactly right.
grueling
Yeah.
work. And it took me 2 days to get $3,000. And so I've been fascinated by the MIT Card Counting Club, and I'm sure that is a great story to tell and works well. You got to know your audience, and that's a good one for that. Scott,
Absolutely right.
thank you so much for being on the show today. I look forward to having you guest again. You're always a wealth of great information. And I mean, hey, you have the Rainmaking podcast. Who could be better?
Thank you,
Thank you
Henry.
so much for being with us today.
Thank you.